Okay. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here for disability inclusion in employment. We have Kevin Irvine here today from Rush, and he is going to be talking to us about employment for people with disabilities. And I am Anna Kohout, and I am the executive director of A Place for Us, which is a national nonprofit organization that is majority virtual. And our mission is to help students with disabilities succeed in higher education through peer mentorship that spans from high school through college. So we match high school students or current college students with disabilities with other college students with disabilities or graduate students or recent graduates and help them kind of go through that process and support them through that. And in addition, we do lots of events like this one today. And so we're super excited to have Kevin here and have him talk about those next steps after college and what employment could look like. Kevin, would you like to introduce yourself more?
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Kevin Irvine, and as Anna said, I work at Rush University Medical Center, which is a large nonprofit academic medical center in Chicago, Illinois. And I've been at Rush for a little bit more than 6 years. And my pronouns are he, him, his. And a brief physical description: I am a middle-aged, light-skinned guy with short, dark brown, turning gray hair, glasses, and I'm wearing a Kelly green shirt that says "Rush celebrates disability inclusion," and that's me. Yeah, I'm here today to talk about disability inclusion in employment. There's a lot of different components to that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the laws that cover disability, your rights when you have a disability in the employment sector, and then share some of the things we do at Rush to promote disability inclusion, and then hopefully just kind of answer any questions you might have, but talk about all the different things that come up when you're looking for work, working around self-identification, disclosure, asking for accommodations, things like that. Um, so a little bit more about me. I am a 55-year-old guy. I've lived in Chicago for over 25 years, but I'm actually originally from the Northern California Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area. And so I grew up out there. I was born with one disability, the bleeding disorder called hemophilia. My type of hemophilia is hemophilia B, which is a clotting disorder. So I've lived with hemophilia my entire life. And that affects my blood's ability to clot and caused some joint damage when I was a toddler. And so I sustained pretty significant knee damage. So I was wearing a leg brace for a while in kindergarten, where my disability was more noticeable. And growing up in the 70s and 80s, in the 70s especially, I was just kind of open about my disability status. It was kind of this thing that people knew about my hemophilia around the elementary school and in the community. And I walked with a pretty good limp, so it was pretty noticeable. And but then in the 80s, about 90% of those of us who have severe hemophilia got infected with HIV through the blood products that we use to treat our hemophilia. And I was one of those. So I got infected with HIV, and this was in the early days of the HIV/AIDS epidemic. And so it was between HIV carrying a lot of stigma and people experiencing a lot of discrimination and basically exclusion from schools, from employment, from families even. And then just being an adolescent teenager, and wanting to not wanting to be kind of ostracized. I really stopped being open about my disability status. I stopped talking about having hemophilia. I certainly didn't disclose my HIV or the fact that I may have HIV, because I didn't even test positive for HIV until I was a senior in high school. Um, but so I didn't manage it that well. I would say I was basically in denial and not really coming to terms with it, because I really didn't know what to do. It was a lot to manage at that time. And so I worked a number of different jobs, since we're talking about employment. I mean, I did like yard work, I did babysitting, I did I was an usher in a theater in my hometown, and every summer I worked at a food service job. I was it was like a summer conference program at Stanford University near where I grew up, and I worked in food service. But I did not disclose my disabilities. And if anyone asked me about my limp, I just said, "Well, I just hurt my leg this morning. I hurt my knee," and I kind of just tried to, just say something that would get them to move on to something else. Um, and but this was, of course, was pre-ADA. Most of this was before the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed in 1990. So um, about halfway through my college years, my 4 years, I went to Purchase College, which is at the part of the State University of New York system. Um, and it actually turned out to be a really great place to be. I was there 87 through 91. And the HIV/AIDS epidemic was, I mean, New York City was really like ground zero. There was so much going on in terms of so many people infected with HIV, but also a lot of activism going on around the epidemic, and um, people, kind of fighting for treatment and for civil rights. Um, and I had a professor at my college who taught women's studies and economics, and she was actually really involved with HIV, with an HIV activist group called ACT UP in New York City. And she, in the spring of 1990, created a class, which I think was the first of its kind, called AIDS, Political, Economic, and Ethical Issues. And so she brought in HIV activists and treatment experts and a lot of different people to our school campus, and basically taught me everything I needed to know to be an HIV activist, and to also gave me a great footing to kind of come to terms with my own HIV status and what that really meant. And at the end of that class, I came out to the entire class, and then when I went back to and if you're can you please make sure you're all muted, because I see I'm hearing a little background noise. Thank you. Um, and for the beginning of my senior year of college, I was dealing with a situation where, like, my junior year, I'd kind of come out of denial, and so some people knew about my HIV status and my disabilities. Some people didn't, and it was really hard. I was really struggling between, some people knew and some people didn't know. I think a lot of people, with, those of us with not mostly non-apparent disabilities, get that. And I just decided to come out to the whole school. It was not that the school was only about 3,000 students. We had a school paper, and so I wrote basically kind of an opinion piece um, on for a school paper, and came out to the whole school at once. And I'm not saying that everyone should do that necessarily, but I got to say it was really liberating, because I got to tell my version of my disability story to everyone all at once. I got to put out exactly what I wanted, versus, you tell one person about your disability, and then they're going to share it with someone else, and you don't know exactly what's being told about you to other people. So this way I could just kind of put it all out there, and I found that to be really, really freeing. So that kind of set the tone for really the rest of my life, because uh, from then on, people would just say, "Hey, I saw the article," and that's all we had to do. So there wasn't like a big conversation where we're having kind of unloading this. Back then, especially, HIV was not being touted in ads on TV where they're talking about HIV medications, and people are dancing and doing barbecues and stuff. There was a tremendous amount of stigma. People were being fired from jobs, kicked out of school. Um, a lot of things were happening. And so then when I went to apply for my first job out of college, I moved back to my hometown, and I applied for a job working with adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I didn't really have a plan for what I was going to do, um, kind of how I was going to deal with my disabilities in the workplace, because but I had been so out for more than a year at that point, and been doing some HIV activism, and it just had just become really quickly just so much part of my sense of myself and who I was. So I applied for this job, and uh, during the interview, they asked me, like, "What are you most proud of?" And so I thought for a minute, and I said, "Well, I'm most proud about being open about having HIV and hemophilia." And I just came out in the interview. Um, and obviously, it was is a disability provider, and I was in California, which is generally a more progressive state. But they were surprised, but they also were like, "Oh, okay, well, thanks for sharing that. And how are you doing?" And it's like, "Well, I'm doing well, overall." And and that was that. And so I got the job, and it was a really great reinforcing for me that you can share your story, even if there's it's a pretty big story to tell. and you can have a positive experience. And so it was great. And so at one point, I worked for this organization for a couple of years before I moved out of state, and I needed to get my knee replaced. So, but it was again, I didn't have to kind of go through the disclosure when I was also saying, hey, I need to take some time off for knee replacement surgery and uh, physical therapy, because they already knew. So it was just again, just kind of part of it made it much easier to ask for that accommodation. And so that really set the tone for the rest of my life. And so I got involved um, in the disability advocacy community, and got more. I first worked kind of doing HIV and hemophilia community advocacy, and then I expanded. I got a job at Independent Living Center in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is a center for services and advocacy for people with disabilities, and got involved in the broader disability rights movement. Through that work, I met the person that I've been married to for 23 years, my wife, Karen Tamley, who is also a disability advocate and is currently the president and CEO of Access Living, which is a center for services and advocacy in Chicago. She also grew up with her disability. She's a wheelchair user, and we have a 19-year-old daughter who goes by Amethyst, who is a has a physical, mental, and developmental disabilities, and is doing great. Is in a post-secondary certificate program at Elmhurst University called the ELSA program. Um, yeah, so that's a little bit about my personal story, my personal journey, and I'm always happy to answer more questions about that. But that really brought me to what I'm doing. So I was living in Albuquerque, New Mexico for 4 years, and then Karen got a job in Chicago and moved here in '96, and I followed her in '97. For 8 years, I worked for an organization called Equip for Equality, which is a statewide legal advocacy agency for people with disabilities in Illinois. It's a nonprofit that provides legal advocacy services to people with lots of different types of disabilities. And through that work, a lot of what I was doing was helping people with all different types of disabilities understand what their legal rights were in a number of different areas, including in healthcare, transportation, rights around making personal decisions, rights when you're getting mental health services, and in employment. And that was really where I learned a tremendous amount in the 8 years that I worked there, because I heard from people with all different types of disabilities about they're looking for work and not sure what to say about why they had gaps in their work history, or what to say or not to say about a disability. I heard from people who were on the job and concerned they're being treated unfairly and wanted to know what to do about it and what their options were. I would go to like mental health treatment centers where people were getting inpatient treatment, and people would say, "What do I tell my employer about when I go back to work about where I've been, and what do I have to say? And what if they ask me? How do I respond?" So through that work that I was doing, I really gained a great deal of um, kind of a collection of ideas for ways to guide people through this process. So I took 12 years off to be a stay-at-home dad after being in Equip for Equality when my wife and I adopted our daughter. Um, she had, as I said, multiple disabilities, primarily a craniofacial condition called Apert syndrome, and she needed a lot of surgeries. And so surgeries, therapies, early intervention, all that fun stuff. So I took 12 years off to be a stay-at-home dad. And then when I was looking to go back to work, um, I was looking for a job where, someone with just a bachelor's degree in literature and writing could do the kind of work that I like to do. And Rush University Medical Center actually they had created a position on their recruitment team to support their efforts to recruit people with disabilities for jobs at Rush, but also to recruit veterans, um, and support Rush's work to hire people from the west side of Chicago. So this is a really unusual job. A lot of places don't have someone on the recruitment team whose job it is just to support the diverse workforce that they're hoping to hire. So I never ever take it for granted, and I definitely I recognize that it's not super common to have an employer like Rush that does the things that Rush does. But Rush had a history of disability inclusion and advocacy that really went back decades. And in fact, there's an organization called the National Organization of Nurses for Disabilities. And in 2003, that group started out of a conference for nurses with disabilities that was held at Rush. So over 20 years ago. And that's just one example. I can give a lot more, but Um, anyway, so yeah, so I can tell you a little bit more about my job at Rush, and then talk a little bit more about the law and all these different issues. And I looked through all the questions that people submitted in advance, and really appreciate that you took the time to share your questions, because it's going to help me a lot in guiding this. If you have a question while I'm talking, please feel free to throw it into the chat. And if there's something that you want me to go into more detail on, or there's a point that was unclear, please feel free to jump in the chat. And if I'm really missing something, you can feel free to unmute yourself and interrupt. I don't mind. This is a pretty small group here, and so I definitely want to hear from anyone. If you've got a question, I want to make sure that before 8 o'clock Central, I want to make sure that everyone's questions get answered. And at the very least, the basics, and then where to go for more information. So I'm also going to share some resources today. So I can tell you a little bit about what I do at Rush, and then kind of go back and talk a little bit about the law. Well, maybe I'll start with a couple things, a couple of laws that I think are relevant. The main law that affects people with disabilities in employment is the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and I've got kind of a unique perspective on the ADA, having worked as a disabled person prior to the ADA, and then coming up as a disability advocate in the 1990s when the ADA was going into effect and being implemented, and dealing with court challenges, and we were going through a massive education effort to teach both disabled people but also employers about their rights and responsibilities under the ADA. But basically, the ADA says that, and it covers most employers, not every single employer. It says employers have to may not discriminate against qualified disabled employees, and may not ask questions about a person's disability. They can only ask about your qualifications to do the job with or without reasonable accommodations. If you have a non-apparent disability, and you don't disclose that, then an employer really has no grounds to ask you about your disability or your disability status. Um, if your disability is obvious, an employer in an interview context, they could ask questions and it's really limited. They could ask questions related to demonstrating how you may perform certain functions of the job if it's not obvious. So, like if you're applying for a job driving a vehicle and you roll in using a wheelchair, they may ask you, tell us how you would perform the essential functions of the job, and then it's on you to explain how you would do the job. So it's not, but it doesn't give them the right to just ask whatever they want about your disability, even if you do disclose your disability. It's really got to be very, very limited. Um, and then when it comes to hiring decisions, they may not fail to hire you just because you have a disability. They really have to consider your candidacy for that position along with everyone else. Um, the challenge is that if an employer doesn't hire you, proving that they didn't hire you because of a disability is very, very tough to do. Just, unless they just come out and say it, and give you some kind of a smoking gun, most employers aren't going to tell you, well, this is why we didn't give you the job. It's because once you told us you had a disability, that's it. Um, every once in a while, there's someone that kind of, messes up and says the thing that's on their mind that they shouldn't say. But generally, that's not going to happen. So if you don't get hired someplace and you think it's because of a disability, you can file a complaint. You can file a lawsuit, and there's lots of different ways to do that. Chicago has a human rights ordinance. Cook County that Chicago is in also has one. Illinois has a human rights commission. You can file complaints there. If this takes place in Illinois. A lot of other states have similar bodies where you can file complaints. I'm not sure if there's anyone here from outside Illinois, but there are lots of different places. And then the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is the federal agency that enforces the ADA. And I would say they have been enforcing the ADA. We'll have to see in the current administration how much enforcement of the ADA happens, or how aggressive they are in doing that. But anyway, but there are some remedies, but again, it's still really hard to prove. And so and the main remedy that you're going to get if you file a complaint is to get the job. And if someone is discriminating against you and treating you unfairly, is that really a place you want to work? Because working someplace where you're only there because you successfully won a discrimination complaint, I think could be awkward and uncomfortable, and maybe not a place where you're going to feel like you're doing your best work. Um, anyway, but so those are, you can file complaints, but again, it's tough. So that's why I always tell people that, really plan as much as you can when you're applying for jobs, to think about what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. Now that being said, there are some employers that are more friendly to disabled people, and I obviously I'm working for one of them. Rush is a place that recognizes the value of having a diverse workforce that includes people with all kinds of disabilities and chronic health conditions and neurodiversity. And there are a number of employers that have reputations as being inclusive, supporting diversity that includes disabled people. And what I always tell people is look and see what they're putting out there. What are they saying on their career site about inclusion, about diversity? Obviously we've been talking. There's been a lot of talk in the news about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if you're paying any attention at all, you've seen that a number of companies have said we're ending our DEI programs. Um, but that's not everyone. Not everyone's doing that. There are some places that are really leaning into it and saying this is who we are. This is what we do. I know Rush has talked repeatedly. Equity is one of our core principles, and it's not going anywhere. And so I feel very, very confident in the place that I work that this is a place where this isn't a fad. This is baked into our DNA. And so finding a place where you can be yourself and self-disclose if you choose is, I think, something that everyone should aim for. Obviously, it is a privilege to be in a place like that because not everyone has that privilege. Sometimes you just need a job. And so there are some things you can do to protect yourself. So if you're in a place that maybe is not as friendly, um, yeah, you're going to be, in the best position you can. Um, but yeah, ideally you want to find a place that is supportive. Now there was some talk this week also about this. We can't ignore the news, but there's some. Hold on one second. I'm getting some background noise in my home. So hold on one second. Sorry about that. I had some background noise in my home that was distracting to me, so I had to just I got a college student who's going back to college on Monday. So anyway, um, So there is another law besides the ADA that's actually older. It's called the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and a lot of you may have heard of Section 504 because if you have a disability and you don't need like modified curriculum or things like that in school, but just need like maybe some accommodations in school. Some of us, you may have had a 504 plan when you were in your primary education, and the 504 is basically it's a part of the Rehab Act that says that federal programs, federally funded programs, have an obligation to accommodate people with disabilities who are using those programs, and so it can cover lots of things beyond education. But mostly if you're in the if you have grown up with a disability or had a disability in college or primary education, you may have heard about 504 that way. But there's another part of the Rehab Act that is not as well known, which is Section 503. And this is a part of the Rehab Act that actually is an affirmative action requirement for federally funded programs and services and federal contractors. And so one example of a federal contract would be Medicaid. So Rush takes Medicaid, and a lot of other large organizations do take Medicaid as well, or other federal um, funds. So they're covered by Section 503, and Section 503 actually says that if you are a federal contractor or subcontractor, you have an affirmative duty to recruit, hire, promote, retain people with all types of disabilities for all jobs at your organization. It cannot just be like jobs set aside or entry level jobs. It's got to be all types of jobs. And you have to make a good faith effort to do that with a goal of having 7% of your workforce composed of people with disabilities. So it's one of those things that is a requirement. If an employer doesn't comply, are they going to lose their federal funding? Probably not. It's enforced by a department in the U.S. Department of Labor called the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs, or OFCCP. And I'll put a link to uh, the OFCCP um, website about Section 503 in the chat in a little bit. Um, but anyway, they're kind of checking in on employers, but they're not doing really aggressive auditing. They're not going in, sending teams in to audit things. It's really a self-reporting thing. And I think they're looking just to see that you're doing something to try and recruit people with disabilities. So there are a number of employers that are actually covered by Section 503, and there's a similar law that affects veterans called VEVRA, which is a Vietnam era veterans. I forget the rest of the acronym, but basically it's a similar requirement for affirmatively recruiting, hiring, promoting, retaining veterans with a 7% utilization goal. So if you ever have applied for a job and you've seen a question, a form come up in the application giving you a chance to confidentially self-disclose a disability or your veteran status, it is because that employer is covered by Section 503 and VEVRA. And they're probably a federal contractor or subcontractor, and they're required to do that. And I'm sure a lot of people, if you've ever applied for a job and seen that form, you thought, should I check that box or not? Um, and obviously, it's a very personal decision to whether or not to do that. That being said, the reason it's there is that because they're required to track how many people with disabilities have applied for jobs, and also track how many people they've hired. And the only way to do that is to give people a chance to self-disclose, and to do it in an organized way. So I can tell you, like that's part of my role at Rush, is I can pull up reports from our applicant tracking system to see how many people who have applied for jobs at Rush have checked that box, and I can see also another report see how many people who checked that box were hired. And when I started at Rush, about 3% of the people that applied for jobs at Rush were checking that box. After a few years of really promoting our work to recruit disabled people and talking about our disability inclusive culture, we got that up to 5.5%. So it almost doubled in the span of just a few years. And the number of people that we hired who had checked that box, self-disclosing, also went up by about almost 400%. So I can also tell you that the information that is when you check that box, it is supposed to be kept separate from your application. So it is not something that the recruiter will see. It's not something that the hiring manager will see. The only people that are supposed to have access to that data are people that are involved in tracking that organization's compliance with Section 503. So it actually caused us a problem because we at Rush, because we were using one applicant tracking system when I came on board, and I was able to pull up a report showing people who checked that box when they applied, and then another one when they were hired. And then we changed our applicant tracking system, and now I'm still trying to get a way to pull up the data for I can find it in someone's individual application through I've got a special access to look at so I can see if someone's applied, if they've checked that box with a disability. But I'm having a hard time getting a report about the hires. And so it's actually causing some problems with me tracking our numbers and our progress. And I'm working on that now. But it's because the system is designed to keep that information separate. So if you have any doubts about that, I mean, I'm maybe there's some employers out there that are you know using the information without the best of intentions, inappropriately. But um, if the system is designed how it's supposed to be designed, it is kept separate, and it should be kept separate. So just keep that in mind. Um, and so yeah, so again, just because you check that box when you're applying for a job, the recruiter who contacts you for an interview or the hiring manager, um, they likely will not know that. Very likely will not know that. Um, if I know someone is applying for a job um, at Rush and they self-identify with a disability, if I'm in connection with them or with like an employment specialist who's working with them, I will reach out to the recruiter and I'll say, hey, can you make sure that the hiring manager sees their application? So we don't guarantee interviews or guarantee jobs, but we basically kind of boost the signal for people with disabilities when they're applying for jobs at Rush. If we know, and if they know, if they reach out to us and say, hey, I'd like some support in my job search at Rush. But other than that, they're not necessarily going to know unless you individually self-disclose. So, and I only share the information that's necessary that the recruiter or the hiring manager actually needs to know, but not disability information if that's not something that you're individually disclosing in your application. Um, let's see. So let's talk a bit more about the whole application process and self-disclosure when you're applying for jobs. So um, whether or not to disclose is a really personal decision. And I think that, especially if you have a non-apparent disability, well, let me talk first if you have a noticeable disability, because I think that how you're going to handle this it really can depend. If you have a noticeable disability and it is going to be obvious at any point in this process of interviewing and or if you have to ask for accommodation, um, then I think you have to be prepared to talk about that in a way that shows your self-confidence and that whenever you have to talk about your disability, I think it helps you to talk about it in a way that is as confident as possible about who you are and demonstrating self-awareness about what you need to be successful in the workspace. If you think you may need some accommodations, the more you are familiar with the types of accommodations that may help you be successful in the workplace, the better. But even if you're not feeling super confident or you don't have a big track record of like working with accommodations, um, even if you can just talk about it as if you are confident, fake it till you make it, that might help. Because I think that generally people take cues about how to respond to their disability from you. And so when you talk about yourself with confidence, and you talk about your disability with confidence, people feed off that. But similarly, if you show less confidence, if you are less self-assured, um, people can feed off that vibe as well. And that may make them feel like, ooh, if this person doesn't sound very confident, how are they going to handle when, something comes up in the workplace? And, it can create doubt. And I think what you want to do is you try and, want to the best extent possible, try and eliminate doubts about who you are as a potential candidate for that job. And so the more you can kind of say, yes, um, I've had success in school or in this job or these jobs with accommodations, and I know what I need, then again, that kind of shows that you're someone that knows yourself and knows what you need to be successful. And I think most hiring managers want someone who has a good idea about how they work and how they work well. Um, and ideally, you want to work in a job. I think when you're looking for jobs, think about finding a job where you need the fewest number of accommodations. Because even though you have a right to ask for accommodations to do a job, if if you need to work in a quiet space with very few people, in a kind of a low stress, calm environment, and you know that this is a place where the majority of the workspaces are going to be fast paced and busy and noisy, you can you can apply there. You can ask for accommodations, but it may be much harder to get that kind of accommodation if like a quieter space. Um, and so try and tailor your job search to places where it's the best fit for your disabilities, and where it's going to be the easiest possible to get the kind of accommodations you may need. To be sure that you are familiar with accommodations, hopefully all of you are familiar with the Job Accommodation Network. It is a federally funded independent agency that assists uh, job seekers, employers, and employees with disabilities in figuring out workplace accommodation issues. They've been around for over 40 years. All of their services are free. They've got a fantastic website and um, they provide one-on-one technical assistance, but they also have a ton of great resources on their website. And I will put a link to the chat, link in the chat to them in a little bit. But I definitely encourage you to, you can look up by different types of accommodations. You can look by job function. You can look by disability. And they have a ton of examples from all of their experience about different types of accommodations. They even have links to places where you can find different tools and equipment and things that will help you, you know, help you to achieve that accommodation. So really become as familiar as you can with all the different accommodations that might be useful for your specific disability and for the types of jobs that you're hoping to do or that you are doing. Again, the more knowledge you have, the more experience you have kind of exploring how these things can work, the more you're going to be able to kind of show and demonstrate that confidence that it's going to help an employer feel confident in your ability to do the job, even if you're asking for a number of accommodations. And then, yeah, if you have to disclose, if you have to ask for accommodations to do a job, but you don't need it for the interview, then it's really up to you whether you're going to, whether you want to disclose your need for accommodations to do the job before you get offered the job. Because legally, you don't have to ask for accommodations before you're actually starting or before you've been offered the job. Um, and if you have any doubt about whether or not you can get the accommodations, you can certainly mention that in an interview and just say, um, these are the accommodations that I will need to do this job. Um, and again, it's a way to have a conversation with them. But you don't have to. You can wait. And so some people choose to wait. Some people choose to either disclose a disability but not disclose the accommodations they need. Some people choose to not disclose anything at all. It's a judgment call. I've seen plenty of people who just disclose their disability right up front in their application or mention in their resume or in their social media or LinkedIn profiles. And I think that's great. I want to normalize disability visibility. We're everywhere. 1 in 4, 1 in 5 people have some kind of disability or chronic health condition that meets the definition of disability. Um, and I would like to, be in a place where you can just say, this is just part of who I am. And people just say, okay, you know, they're not surprised by that. We're not quite there yet. I think we can get there, but we're not quite there yet. But I think you're absolutely, you know, it's within your right to share that different ways. Um, either upfront in your application, in your resume, on your social media profiles, and then just know that you put it out there, and that could affect whether or not you get a job offer. But again, if someone is not going to hire you or not even going to give you an interview because you are self-disclosing a disability, it's not really a place you want to work. Because honestly, going someplace where you're walking around in eggshells and worried about having to ask for accommodations because you haven't disclosed and you think they're gonna, you're worried how they may respond. Um, you know, that's not really the healthiest way to live. And so I think again, it is a privileged position that I'm holding here. Having a job, being out for over 30 years, but it's I think ideally, if you can find some place where you can be yourself, and someplace they're gonna welcome and value you, uh, do that. And I also think that sometimes you have to act for the way you want the world to be, even if it's not totally there yet. And by doing that, you help to create that world because you just, I think everyone wants to see themselves as a good person. And so when you just, talking about disability, like it's a normal thing to do, which increasingly it is, then people are like, oh, I guess this is normal. I guess, okay. So I may be uncomfortable, but maybe I'm just uncomfortable because this is something I haven't experienced before, and that moves them along that line, that timeline from um, experience being more ableist to being less ableist. And I do want to say that we all have uh, ableist thoughts, beliefs. Um, Internalized ableism is a significant real thing. Um, and I mean, I was just saw a TV commercial the other day, talking about, it was for a lawyer, um, for birth defects. So, and talking about if you got CP at birth, like it's the most awful thing ever. And again, these are the roots of ableism. All these things, like I don't care what gender the baby is, as long as it's healthy. Okay, that's ableism. There's lots of different ways ableism creeps into our life in ways big and small. And so we all have a degree of internalized ableism for ourselves if we have disabilities, and ableism about lots of different kinds of disabilities. So recognizing that's within people, and just being straight up about it. And but one way you change and you reduce ableism is through visibility, and through showing us out there, and the more of us that are out there, being out and being proud, and going to like the Disability Pride Parade, and putting our disabilities on our social media bios, and sharing your disability identity and your resume, and when you're applying for jobs, it, it it's chipping away at ableism and at the stigma, and it does get better, and it is getting better. I mean, it's so much better now than 30 years ago. Trust me, so much better. As much as you say, oh, things are bad right now, and it is so much better. So just know that right up front. And but the way it gets there is not overnight. It's really gradual. And each of us can have a place to play and a part to play in making that happen. So yeah, so I had to say, think about it, how you're going to say it, practice whenever possible, what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, and um, and then know your rights and know what accommodations you need. Let's see, now there was a question that came up in the chat. So okay, we can talk about remote work in a little bit. Let's see. Um, yeah, so let's talk about let's get into the remote work now. Because that's a really interesting question. I know I think the pandemic has did so much to improve access to remote work. So in that way, it was really helpful. Um, a growing number of employers recognize that a lot more of the job can be done remotely now than was the case before the pandemic, which is great. But there is some backlash for excuse me, hold on one sec. Um, there is some backlash for remote work with some managers, some employers. I think you may have seen, some, people saying, "Oh, when all the federal employees go back to in-person work," and some employers saying, "Well, we're going to stop offering remote work," um, and certainly there are some, old school managers out there that are like, I mean, you got to be there, and obviously there are some people that may abuse the privilege of working remotely by uh, not doing enough work. Um, so I would say the more you can find out in advance about that, the better. Um, See what they say on the job description, find out. And I would say that that's certainly something you can ask without, if you get a job interview, that's certainly something you can ask without necessarily disclosing a disability. Um, you could say, so the culture has changed a lot around remote work, and I'm just really curious. I do um, prefer to work for an employer that has at least an option to work remotely, and you can ask, what is your policy about remote work? And that'll give you a good opportunity to hear what they have to say about it. I also think another question you can ask on the same vein. I mean, there was someone I was talking with a while back, and they had a very positive interview with an employer that they were thinking about working for, but also they were concerned about how accepting they'd be of this person as because of their sexual orientation and their disability status. And so they asked the employer in an interview, so can you tell me more about your, your inclusive culture? Um, and because I'd like to, I want to work someplace with an inclusive culture. And surprisingly, that employer never followed up with him. So that was a sign right there that for them, like, okay, well, I think I may have, I may have, it's a good thing that they didn't follow up because it's probably not a place I want to work. If they're not, um, if I ask about inclusive culture and they get really uncomfortable, or they don't follow up and don't say, well, we can tell you all about it, and that's a good sign right there. So I think asking those questions before when you're having an interview, even if you haven't disclosed a disability or haven't talked about accommodations, is perfectly okay to do. So just think about that. Question came out of the chat. So when in the interview process or after being hired to ask for remote work from a city job where they require everyone else to be in person? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about um, after you get a job offer. So once you have a conditional job offer, so that means like they say, okay, we want to hire you, offering this job, but like it could be a background check, there could be some screening that they have to do for all employees. That's when you can ask for accommodations, but it's got to be an actual genuine job offer. And then that is when they can ask you more questions. So like they can't do medical screening before you have a conditional job offer. Like they can't ask you to take a drug test or can't ask you to, they can say, hey, just so you know, all of our employees have to pass a drug test. We test for this, this, and this. Um, you know, they can say that, but they can't actually make you do a drug test or make you do any kind of physical task before, or any kind of um, medical or disability related screening before you have a conditional job offer. After you have that conditional job offer, then that's when they can do things, but only if everyone who's being hired for that role is being asked to do that, do like drug screening or some kind of a test, or collecting some health information. And it's got to be really limited. It's got to be related to the job that you're being hired for. Um, and so it does not give them, an employer, the license to ask whatever they want about your health history or things like that. It's really got to be very job related and consistent with business necessity. Um, so during that time, you you just have to be aware that if something's going to come up, that would be the time when you can ask for accommodations, and you can say, I need these accommodations. And I think, again, sharing with them the job accommodation network, giving them examples of accommodations, and then you enter into what's called the interactive process, where you've asked for an accommodation, and then they have a chance to ask, about how you think you can do the job with or without accommodations. They don't necessarily have to give you the exact accommodation you ask. If they think that the job can be done with a different accommodation that maybe is less costly, they could offer that. And then you have to decide if that's something that is acceptable to you or not. The thing is, um, if an employer offers you an accommodation that might actually accommodate your disability, but it's not your ideal accommodation, um, you can ask, say, well, I really prefer this, but if they really hold the line on that, then you may have to actually try that out and see how that goes, and try working with the accommodation as they propose it, even if it's not your ideal accommodation, and then revisit and see if it's working or not. You don't necessarily have a right to get every accommodation you ask exactly as you ask for it, if there's multiple ways that you can be accommodated. Um, and it's super important to make any accommodation requests in writing, um, because what you want to have is a clear understanding about what you're asking for, um, and what their response is. Um, Large employers tend to have more formalized processes to handle accommodation requests. Smaller employers may have a more informal process, but regardless of what the process is, you need to have a you need to clearly communicate what you're asking for, and then when they respond, you need to have a clear understanding of what their counter offer is if they're not giving you exactly what you're asking for. So an example could be like, let's say you ask for working remotely 5 days a week, and they come back and say, well, how about you work remotely, 2 days a week and come in these 3 days or things like that. You know, you want to basically whatever the agreement is or whatever comes back to you, you want to make sure that you clearly understand what they're communicating. So if they don't have it in writing, if and this happens like in a face-to-face meeting or in a phone call, you can email them and say, hey, thanks for meeting with thank you so and so for meeting with me on this date and communicating this. Is my understanding of what you said or what you're communicating correct? You said X, Y, and Z, and you list what your understanding is of what they said. And those it's really important for multiple reasons. One reason is it is showing that you are documenting what they're saying. And if you did have to file any kind of a discrimination complaint later, having something in writing that you've communicated about your understanding of what they're saying is really important to document your understanding of this interaction. But it's also important because sometimes people don't communicate super clearly, and they may say something, and they may think they're communicating one thing, and you're hearing something very different. And so you want to make sure that they hear how you are receiving what they're saying, what they're communicating. And then you're also again, this is a way to just make it clear you're documenting what they're saying. And that way, it's also putting them on notice that they've got to be really mindful about what they're saying and how they're saying it because you're documenting it. Um, and then whatever the final agreement is, if they don't put it in writing, then you do that. Again, you send an email or a letter, say, hey, thanks for meeting with me on these dates, and this is my understanding of our accommodation agreement. Um, and please let me know in writing if my understanding is not correct. And again, that's basically saying this is my understanding of what we're going to do, how it's going to be done. If if this isn't accurate, let me know. And that way you're putting it in writing to the best extent you can. Um, okay, I'm going to go through some of these questions, some great questions here. How do you address a big gap in your employment history that was because of your disability? Great question. Gaps in work history. Um, it is very, very common, I think a lot more common than not, to have some gaps in your work history. More and more, I think there's more and more understanding that things happen in life um, and you've had to take some time off from work. However, it is human nature to be curious about gaps in someone's work history. It's just, you wonder, you look at someone, okay, well, what were they doing? I don't see anything from, 2020 to 2022. What was going on? You're not listing school, you're not listing a job. So what were you doing? Um, and so when you leave gaps in your work history, then people fill in those gaps with their imagination. And that's just human nature. Um, what are they imagining? We don't know. Are they imagining the best thing ever, or are they imagining something terrible? We don't know. So if you need to explain gaps in your work history, you can say, and I've seen this. This is again going back to like changes in the culture and how we talk about things. I've seen some great changes in the time I've been doing this work. People are saying I took time off from work. I took and you could say career break, and people do that on their resumes. I'm seeing more and more people saying career break on their resume. You can say, I took time off to handle a private family matter. You could say, I took some time off to manage my personal health and I got those issues resolved, and now I'm ready to make a full-time commitment to work again. Um, you can say, you can say, you go into more detail. I would say, you know, don't go into a tremendous amount of detail, but it's totally okay to say, I had some medical issues and I had to take time off to deal with them. Um, a few years ago, LinkedIn added a category of stay-at-home parent as a job on their and just in their drop-down menu for different jobs. And I was so excited because when I was a stay-at-home parent for 12 years, and I was doing a lot of volunteer work, and I did some contract work during those 12 years. I wasn't only a stay-at-home dad, but I was also thinking, man, that's a lot of time. A lot of time not working. I've been out of the workforce, the full-time workforce. And so when I heard that I was working at Rush, I went back to my LinkedIn and I put my my time, my work as a stay-at-home parent in there because it was work and I learned a lot from it. And it informed who I am, and it definitely made me a better advocate. Being a dad of a disabled kid, as a disabled person, it's given me so many more tools in my toolbox, and so I've learned so much from that experience. And right now, this is what I'm doing. I'm talking about it with that confidence because I found that, I look back at my experience and I said, this is something that really informed my experience, informed my understanding of lots of different situations. I learned a lot about resources. I learned about a lot about lots of different systems, the educational system from a different perspective than having gone through it as a kid. Um, and again, it helped me in countless ways. And so I think that whatever happens, you need to talk about your history in a way that shows what happened. We like Rush is a place that is open to hiring people with, have had involvement with the criminal justice system. And so I talk to people. I represent Rush at job fairs a lot, and I talk to people about, they say, well, are you background friendly? And I say, yeah, but you have to talk about your background, whatever it is, in a way that shows you as the hero in the story, as the protagonist, like not like, oh, these things happened to me, and like you're just being buffeted by lots of other things, lots of other negative things, and you need to say, um, I had some adversity in my life. I made some bad choices, and I experienced the consequences for that, and this is what I learned from it. So I mean, whatever happened in your past, whatever you've gone through, what what got you from where you were then to where you are now, and that's how you talk about it in a way that's positive, and that again shows someone that you're someone that learns lessons, that is not going to just make the same mistakes over and over and over again, whatever it might be. And I think that when it comes to disability, you can say, I did have to take some time off because I was getting treatment, or I was doing this or that, and this is what I learned from it, and I learned more tools to be successful in the workplace. And again, so just how you talk about yourself is super important. Um, so if you have more questions about that, I'm happy to jump back on that. But so another question, great question from Alexis. I had a question in an interview a few days ago for a therapist position that caught me off guard. I was asked if I had been in therapy before. Is this a legal question to ask? That's a really great question. And it's a really, I think that is that's a, I would say it would be a hard, I'm not a lawyer. Okay. So keep that in mind. I think, my gut would say that's not an okay question to ask. I think you could say, can you know, share with me your thoughts about the therapy profession, about, what you know about therapy, any connection you have to therapy, or, therapeutic, things like that. But again, that's a really, really tough one. And I think, if it's pre-offer, that would be a harder one to say. Now, you could say, we prioritize hiring people that, have experience with therapy. And again, there are some rules around licensing, and this is where if you're getting into more of a medical position, a clinical position, there are some rules around, for people in clinical roles, certain clinical roles around licensing and mental health treatment. So that may, it's possible that that could be in that area. And so I would say that's, uh, yeah, that's an interesting question. So I would definitely do some looking around the guidance online from the EEOC, Job Accommodation Network, um, to figure out how those questions could be asked legally, and how they, and what they shouldn't. But it's a really good question. So, um, and then another question, a great question from Emily. I have a case open with the Department of Rehab Services. Awesome. Is it a good idea to let a potential employer about this, to let them know I have support, or is it better not to mention this? I think a lot of employers may not even be aware of the um, vocational rehabilitation services that are out there. Um, and so I think, if you did mention it, it would just be to say that, if there's resources they're going to be able to provide, for you, like a job coach, or equipment or things that would help you to do the job, then yeah, certainly you can mention that again. How you mention that is really essential, um, and how you spin it is really important. So I would say think about that. Um, but I don't think there's any reason to not necessarily mention. Just know you may be doing some education if they're not really familiar with vocational rehabilitation services and how it works. Um, um, yeah, so that's hopefully that answered your question, Emily. Okay. Now there was a question that someone asked in advance, like, how do you know if it's safe to disclose or if it'll be used against you? I think I answered that one, but basically, you don't know. You really don't know. Yeah, it's a judgment call. Um, how do you find the right employers? And look at their career site, look and see what's on there. I work really hard to put a lot of disability specific content on the Rush career site. Um, right now it's down, but there's for a while we were featuring we had photos of a bunch of Rush employees with different disabilities, and it had their photo, had their full name, what their job is at Rush, and then what their specific disability is. Um, and we're rebooting that with some new employees because some people left, and then we're kind of changing our website. So that'll be back up soon. But the reason I want to put it out there is I want to send a message to job seekers that this is a place where we have a lot of people with disabilities working for us, and they're sharing their disability identity, and really showing that this is a place you can be open about who you are. But I had another message I wanted to send internally within Rush, which is, Rush is huge. We have over 14,000 employees, and I really wanted to send a message to um, the Rush hiring managers that to show that there's lots of people with disabilities already working at Rush because, with most of our disabilities being non-apparent, if we don't disclose, if we don't share it, it's you just kind of assume we're not there. And I wanted to make sure that hiring managers know that when we're talking about recruiting people with all types of disabilities, we're not talking about doing something super radical. We're just talking about bringing in more of the good people who are already there. And by raising the visibility for people who are already at Rush, who have different kinds of disabilities and chronic health conditions, it is sending a message that, you don't have to necessarily be a pioneer. You can come here and this is a place where there's a lot of other people who've come before you, and it's a safe place to be. Again, I always tell people, Rush is huge, lots of hiring. I mean, with hundreds and hundreds of hiring managers, um, thousands of employees, we have a culture of inclusion overall. Is the climate of every single department, every single team as inclusive? Probably not. Just that's reality. Um, some people are going to be less inclusive, but overall, I think it's an inclusive place, and I think that's again, the more you talk about this as being something that you value, the more we help to make it a reality. So, um, okay, let's see. What are some other questions? So when to disclose the disability need of working from home in the hiring process? I think we kind of covered that. Basically, try and find out in advance as much as you can about, if it's not um, crystal clear from the job posting. Um, if you get an interview, that's the time to ask about flexibility and remote work and things like that. And I think the besides making it easier to get remote work, the pandemic I think has also made it easier to ask the question about remote work without it being seen as potential, like, oh, I'm a disabled person here. I think more and more people are asking about remote work just because they like to work remotely, not because it's a disability thing. So that's definitely made it a lot easier. Let's see. Okay. Going back to when you have a more noticeable disability, I think try and just be aware about how you come off and how noticeable your disability is. If if you aren't sure how noticeable your disability is, um, ask some people that are going to give you honest feedback. Because if your disability is noticeable and you don't say anything about it, um, it might make someone uncomfortable. Because if they're just kind of like, oh, this like, and I'll give you an example. I was I was working for a disability organization, and someone applied who had a very noticeable um, speech um, impairment. I mean, basically, it affected how they talked, and it was a little hard to understand them at times. And they never said one thing about it. And it was like, and we, if someone's applying for a job, you can't ask about it. Um, but it was really weird because it was like a disability organization that you would expect, we hope would be supportive, a disability advocacy organization. And the fact that this person didn't say anything about it um, made us think that they were not necessarily someone that was going to be like um, asking for accommodations that they might actually need. And there were some communication gaps there in the interview because of it. And it was like it was a strange thing. And so um, I think you should, if your disability affects your speech or it's going to be noticeable, just think about something that's a way to talk about it right up front, so that you are demonstrating again that you know yourself and you know how you come off to people, and you're giving people tools about to understand how to interact with you. Um, let's see. Earlier question: being asked if I'm willing to relocate in the interview. What about if I know the company is shifting to no remote jobs? Yeah, that's yeah, that's a good question. I think if you know the company is shifting to not offering remote jobs, again, even if everyone is working on site, you still have a legal right as an accommodation if you need that to ask for remote work. If that is something that you need in order to do the job. If and it's going to cause the employer like undue hardship to provide that accommodation, then they could they can deny that accommodation request. Um, it is going to be hard for an employer that has done work, had done work with most of their employees remotely. Um, it's going to be hard for that employer to then turn around and deny a request for remote work from someone, um, just because, well, that's just not what we do anymore. Because they'd have to show that really there was a job related reason to deny that accommodation, or that's going to cause them undue hardship. It's just that's going to be hard to do. That being said, they could say, well, how about part of the time? And I think again, you want to try and prioritize and find places where you're needing to ask for as few accommodations as possible. That kind of feeds into another question about you know do other employees have a right to know, other coworkers, they have a right to know what your accommodations are? No, they don't. Employers are not allowed to disclose anything about your accommodation request to anyone who does not have an absolute need to know. So coworkers may not know what your accommodation is or why you have accommodations. Um, can that create tension? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if one person is getting remote work and everyone else is working on site, yeah, that could create tension. Um, and just be aware of that. How the employer deals with it is really the important thing. Are they basically supporting you and saying, well, um, we're going to provide the accommodation and help you out with that, doing that. Great. If the I think if you are more, if you want to share more about it, I think that may make it easier for other employees to understand. Um, but you don't have to, again, you don't have any obligation to tell other employees about your accommodation and why you're being accommodated. And the only person that really could share that would be you, because the employer really can't legally do that unless someone else has a need to know. So again, that's coming down to how you talk about your disability in the workplace and whether you do it openly or not. Um, but yeah, it could create some tension if you have a noticeable accommodation and being treated differently than others. And I don't know any easy way around that. Okay, another great question from Sarah Todd. Do you think it's acceptable to say you need to start out remote and then shift to in-person hybrid, asking because they need to figure out transportation before starting in person? That's a great question. So I would say that would be the kind of thing to ask after you have a conditional job offer. Um, and again, try and find out as much as you can in advance before asking for that, because yeah, because not sure how they're going to respond, but you could just again ask about remote work, and I think as long as there are relatively few jobs that absolutely have to be done exactly the way they're being done. We probably think manufacturing, certain healthcare jobs, obviously, like Rush where I work. Um, some jobs have to be done certain places, certain ways, but a lot more jobs have flexibility than not. So thinking out about that in advance is really helpful. Really, really great questions. Let me make sure I got all the questions that people shared in advance.
Okay, there's
Um,
another one in the chat.
okay,
Emily, it says, is it a good idea to put
yeah,
a positive spin on your disability in
yes,
an interview?
yeah, great question. I think that is a good question. I mean, Emily, I think again, yeah, how you talk about your disability, I think is really essential. And putting a positive spin on it, talking about that you know what you need to be successful, and I think no, there's no downsides to that. And if someone's going to take that and it's going to lead to you not getting a job offer, well, then again, that's probably not a place you really want to work, ideally. So I think a positive spin is really, really helpful. Um, and Yeah, but again, it's going to be a judgment call. So I don't want to say this is how you should do it. It's really everyone's got to do um, what feels right to them. And let's see. Um, there's a really good question here about support and patience from an employer during first month on a new job. That's really great. Um, yeah, you can ask for things like taking more time, or in training or onboarding, or asking for um, materials in writing, for example. If like a training's being done and it's being done over like a video system, asking for like a transcript of that, asking for captions on a video, asking for you can ask for to be trained in a certain way. Now, I want to talk about management and supervision. Um, when I was at Equip for Equality, the number one reason why people called feeling like they were being treated unfairly in the workspace was a change in supervisor. This happens all the time. It's you're with one supervisor and they're great, they get it, providing accommodations, and they're fantastic. And then you go to a new supervisor. The new supervisor is like, oh, I got this employee with a disability as an accommodation. Now they don't see you as an asset. They don't see this as someone who's been there for 4 or 5 years, doing the job well, successful, getting good. Now they're like, oh, man, this is something I got to deal with. And now it's like everything you do is like seen through a negative lens instead of a positive lens, instead of an inclusive lens. And they can take the best job in the world and make it into the worst job. Um, and unfortunately, if you wind up with a bad supervisor, you can ask for accommodations for a certain way of supervising. You can ask for, lots of different things. You can ask for employees be trained in disability inclusion, things like that. Um, but if someone is not inclined to be supportive, and not inclined to be um, uh, accommodating, it's really, really hard to get out of that situation. It's ultimately, when you get a bad manager, you can't ask for a change in manager as an accommodation. You can ask for a change in managerial style, ask for a change in supervision styles, and ask for things to be done a certain way. But if the accommodations are going to be provided by someone who is upset that you filed a complaint, um, the workplace is gonna feel toxic, and it's probably gonna be a situation where you're gonna be looking for another place at some point. Um, so just know that right up front. And that happens unfortunately all the time. And it can happen with the best employers. People get promoted in management who are not good managers, not good people managers. They get just because it's like, oh, they're kind of moving along, and people get they may have skills in one area and they move up into a management role, and they wind up being a terrible manager. And if you have a bad manager, even if you have worked for a great employer, sometimes you have to think about moving on if that person's going to be, if they're entrenched there, they're going to be staying there for a while. So just, heads up. Can a job offer be rescinded if you request, oh, sorry, I skipped a question there. Son in the middle of a job search, received an associate's degree in liberal arts. He has high functioning autistic and is struggling to find a job. Any recommendations for employers in the Chicago area for a true entry level position that offers support? Seems the only jobs available are too technical or too remedial for him. He falls in the middle. He can learn. He just needs a job with good support from the employer. Yeah, I would say, again, look for places that have a reputation in the disability community. I mean, that's one nice thing about Chicago. We have a lot of inclusive employers. We've got a lot of organizations that support people with disabilities in their job search. So finding an organization and saying, "Hey, have you heard about some friendly employers?" Asking around, I think is really helpful. Um, and you can ask for, if you having a job coach could be helpful. Uh, Division of Rehab Services can pay for job coaching. And you can ask for the accommodation of having a job coach come on to help you in your early days in a job. Um, so that's something to think about. And I'd be happy to talk, more with your son, in the future, and outside the context of this webinar too. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to put my contact info in the chat. Um, Sarah Todd, another good question. Can a job offer be rescinded if you request an accommodation after receiving but not yet accepting the offer? Yeah, so after a conditional job offer is made from an employer, if you request an accommodation, they really should not rescind the job offer unless there's something changes about your ability to do the job. If you get a job offer rescinded after you've asked for an accommodation, and you can, clearly show that you can meet the essential functions of that job, can do the essential functions of that job with or without accommodations. I would see that as being, a case of discrimination potentially. Um, so that's the thing. You really, that conditional job offer really puts the employer on the hook. They've got to have a very, very good reason. If they do not give you that job, it's going to fundamentally alter the nature of the job. It's going to cause, going to be hazardous. It's going to, there's some dangerous components to that. So there's some, and if you look on the EEOC and the Job Accommodation Network website, there's some more information about when they can rescind a job offer after giving you a conditional job offer. And it's a really, really limited window. And there's a very, very few reasons that they have to rescind that job offer. So, and I think most employers, hopefully, if they have any kind of human resources experience, they know that. Another good question. Can you ask for accommodations after accepting the job offer? Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, you can wait until the job offer to ask for accommodations. You do not have to ask in advance. You can wait until after. Um, and you can ask for accommodations at any time. I mean, you don't have to wait. You do not have to ask if you're not sure if you need accommodations. You can start the job and wait. The tricky thing is, if you start a job and you don't ask for accommodations, and your job performance suffers because you don't have the accommodations, you can be fired, even if you have then said, "Oh, I have," if you are in the job for a while, you can be fired if you're not performing the job well. And if you never ask for accommodations, then you really don't have much protection because they're only required to accommodate you if you ask for accommodations, and they can ask you about disability. So you have to really think about when to ask for accommodations, and ideally you want to ask before it impacts your work performance because if you have if your job performance suffers, you can be fired for poor job performance. You could be fired at the end of your probation period. So if they don't feel it's a good fit, and if you have not asked for accommodations, have not disclosed a disability, or even if you have disclosed a disability but haven't asked for accommodations, you can be fired, and you'd be really hard to prove that it was discriminatory. So um, I think ask for the accommodations before you need them, ideally. Okay, I'm gonna put. We're almost at 8 o'clock. I'm gonna put some links in the chat. But if you have more questions, I will definitely be happy to entertain those questions. But I'm just gonna put some links in the chat. So we've lost a couple people already. So I was going to share a little bit about the Disability Equality Index. This is something that Rush participates in since every year since 2019. It's a benchmarking tool that employers can use to see how their policies and practices align with best practices in disability inclusion. There are hundreds of employers that participate in the Disability Equality Index. Um, so I would hope that those employers are going to be good places, inclusive places to work. Some of them are, some of them may not be as inclusive. It really, really depends. Um, but it gives you a good place to start in terms of looking for employers. Um, and then Job Accommodation Network. And I'm also going to put my contact info in the chat and my LinkedIn. And I encourage you, if welcome any of you to connect with me on LinkedIn. And let's see, here we go. I'm putting some more in the chat. So my contact info. One thing you'll see, I put my part of my email signature, and I added my disabilities to my email signature when I came to Rush 6 years ago, right below my pronouns. And again, I just wanted to normalize including disability as part of your identity and putting it out there. And since I did that, a number of other Rush employees have added their disabilities to their email signatures, which I didn't ask anyone to do, but I always am happy when I see it. Um, and again, that's a way of just kind of putting it out there in a way that's kind of low key, just normalizing it. This is just who I am, and this is me. Just like we put our pronouns there. And again, it's a way of showing that this is me. And it's, um, I think, that's, I think I'd love to see everyone do it because it helps us move along that, that timeline, that progress towards less ableism, more visibility. And I really think that visibility is the key to ending stigma. So when you can make yourself visible and other people visible, it really helps so much. And thanks, Yuri, for agreeing with the idea. So, um, any other questions for right now? We're at 7:57, so we're home stretch here. Anna, was there anything that you were hoping I would cover that I didn't get to?
Don't think so. You covered a lot. Thank you so much. This was really, really helpful and knowledgeable, and I learned a lot tonight for sure. So thank you so
Oh,
much.
good. And I will close by just kind of sharing a quick story about visibility. So when I got to Rush, I put a link to our culture of inclusion page in there, and the there's a video on there of some Rush employees with different disabilities talking about the accommodations that they have in the workplace. So there's Cassandra, who's got PTSD and anxiety, talking about the accommodations she has to do her job as an EPIC analyst. There's Parul Aurora, who's a nurse with low vision, talking about the accommodations she has. And Parul is a longtime member of the National Organization of Nurses with Disabilities, and she's actually on their board. And then there's Carlos Silvera, who started and manages our interpreter services program. And Carlos talks about having rheumatoid arthritis and how he had to get a different keyboard and modified screen placement when his rheumatoid arthritis impacted him in the workplace. And so when I came to Rush, Carlos had been on the ADA. We have an Americans with Disabilities Act task force, and he'd been on the ADA task force for years, and because he works in providing accommodations for like visitors and patients to Rush. And so Carlos was talking to me. He was telling me about having rheumatoid arthritis and about the keyboard and the other accommodations he had. And he was like, "Do you think I have a disability?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think you do." And so he shared that. Now there was another person in this group, in this committee, that I had as soon as I saw this person, because of how they moved, I was like, I think that person has a disability, but they never said anything to me. They didn't like, it's kind of physically, I just had a sense that they had a disability. And so when we did this video and then we shared it, we watched it together in the ADA Task Force Committee. And this person who had been on the ADA Task Force Committee for years with Carlos turns to Carlos and says, "Hey, I've got rheumatoid arthritis too." And now they are both been in a disability focused committee talking about ADA and accommodations and inclusion. and both with the same disability that was mostly non-apparent, and neither one did, the other one had the same disability. Uh, and now they could talk about different medications they've tried and things like that. And so there was a connection that was already there. And so that's why I tell people, like, when you do disclose, when you have a non-apparent disability, especially when you do disclose, yeah, it could lead to some negative stuff, undoubtedly. It could. It's potential, but I think it's much more likely to lead to connections, and to finding connections that you didn't even realize were there. Because I think that, there's millions and millions of us. We all have family and friends and kids, or whatever it might be. And when you share your story, it helps you find other people that relate to that story. So, um, that's why I default towards encouraging radical visibility and self-disclosure. So anyways, there's a term, it's called political disclosure. Basically, when you disclose just because you want to kind of put your identity out there, but you don't necessarily need an accommodation. And I'm a big proponent of political disclosure. So that's all I got to say. I know it's 8 o'clock. I appreciate all your attention. And reach out with it anytime, any questions, or especially if you're interested in jobs at Rush, or have other questions after today. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much again, Kevin. This was super helpful. I'll be sending out the links that you put in the chat and your contact info to everyone that registered, so you guys can get
All
that.
right. All right. Hope everyone has a good rest of the month, as short as it is.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Night.